I just did a whole post on this, so I don't know if you saw
Yay!
that.
No, not yet.
I was a couple
Not
weeks.
yet.
I what did I title it? It's like things that publishing professionals are talking about behind closed doors or something like that.
I
But it
did
was
see that. I did see that.
viral. Like, I've never had a carousel go viral like that, which was crazy. Got, like, almost 10,000 followers in 2 weeks because of that
Holy
post.
crap.
That was insane. That doesn't happen to us usually. But it was just based on conversations that I'm regularly having in my own home with my husband, but also, you know, former coworkers and other people that we're talking to on a regular basis. And yeah, the industry is going through a lot of change right now, largely economically driven, also some politically driven. And so
Mm.
we're seeing the places that investment are going are shifting a little bit. If you are writing in the middle grade space, I'm sorry. It's kind of like the conclusion of that, because right now a lot of children's literature is being, divested in, and so you're seeing
Oh.
fewer new breakout middle grade authors, and you're seeing more investment towards stuff that already has existing IP.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Untitled Work in Podcast. I'm your co-host Darcy.
And I'm your co-host, Lauren.
And today we have with us Lauren Grange, two Laurens, who has
Ooh.
been in the book world for nearly 20 years.
Dang.
Lauren has worked with a multitude of publishing houses like HarperCollins and Amazon Publishing, as well as the big five publishers in the industry. She's worked on over 500
Wow.
traditionally published books,
Dang.
including including titles from Colleen Hoover, Tessa Bailey, and Karen Slaughter.
Nice.
And now she's here today to talk to us all about copy editing.
Woo!
Woohoo! So, Lauren, to kick us off and to get you to know you just a little bit, what is currently on your TBR, or if you listen to audiobooks, your TBL?
I do mostly listen to audiobooks if I'm being real because my day job is largely reading, and so I find that if I want to step back and relax, I listen instead. But
Nice.
There you go.
yeah, it's honestly really helpful to kind of have that separation. But right
Yeah.
now, I am listening to a nonfiction, and I'm going to totally forget the real name of it. Something about women, and it's all data on the gender gap between women and men in various industries, but specifically the data gap and how humans just haven't even tracked the data for women at
Oh,
all.
wow.
'Cause the men are largely the ones collecting the data, and they don't think about women. So that's fun. I really need to get the name of that book though, y'all. It's on my phone over there.
No.
Oh, that's frustrating. But the other I just finished the, Recipes for an Unexpected Afterlife, Recipes for an Unexpected Afterlife, which is a cozy
Interesting.
fantasy, kind of like Legends and Lattes, if you've read that, or like Trees and
Yeah.
Black Tea. It's in that vein, but it's about an undead orc who's released from like 300 years of being a soldier, and then he decides to run a restaurant. It's so sweet and cute. It has a fun family. It was great. But I always had too many
Fun.
books on my TBR, so I think I have
Me too.
like 15 on hold for like on Libby right now, but I
Love it.
pulled numbers that aren't on hold, you know? Yeah,
Yep.
plenty of
Oh,
Yeah,
I
well,
love it.
I like cozy fantasy. I just started getting into it, so I'll have to add that to my TBR. That's
It's a good one.
number 45.
Darcy's TBR grows every time we talk.
As it should, right? We're supposed to be surrounded by great literature, so it's always good to have something
Yes.
new to get our fingers into.
I love
It
it. I
always
love
is,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
Um,
especially since you're surrounded by it. I mean, I bet you get to see all sorts of great stuff. You're like, I'm doing that for my job.
But I pulled a handful that I had worked on so that you could see. So
there you go.
Oh,
like
I love it.
I've got like you mentioned over 500. I think I'm getting closer to 1,000 now books that I've worked on. But just like after so long in the industry, I've touched so many projects. But like
Yeah.
the 500 number is just the ones that I've owned as an editor. But like there are
Nice.
tons that I've worked on arcs for, or like just done a proofread, or different things like that. The smaller projects that I don't necessarily add to that title count.
Dang.
That's so impressive. Well, speaking of your impressive career, would you be able to walk us through like all of the different editor positions that you've held, and what you're doing now and how it's different than other types of editors?
Yeah. So in my bio, I think you didn't mention, but I did start as a librarian. So I feel like it's not
Oh,
technically
fun.
publishing, but I worked at my college library for 4 years as a circulation librarian. And I think that's really where I really learned like what people loved to read, what they were coming to get recommendations for. And I knew in high school that I wanted to be an editor. So I just like being around books always made me happy. But I got started as an acquisition slash managing editor at Jollyfish
Okay.
Press, which at the time was a startup. It was teeny, teeny, tiny, and we honestly didn't get paid. So like, they were like, it was going to be royalties based, but then we never made any money, so I didn't
Oh
make
no.
money. But I did that for like 3 years on the side, like at a day job as well, doing marketing or editing stuff as well. But yeah, so there I was an acquisitions editor, overseeing like taking on projects, reading queries, and then like managing the project from when we acquired it to all the editing passes and then sending it off to the printer. And then later, then my husband was a literary agent, and so when he graduated college, he was like, "We've got to go to New York. Everybody's telling me we have to go to New York." Well, it works for me. And so we did our big move. At the time, he had an unpaid internship that we were moving for, and I
Solid.
literally applied to HarperCollins the like 2 weeks before we moved and got the job like 2 days before we moved.
Oh wow.
Dang.
Was
Wow.
wild. But I ended up working initially in reprint production. So I was backlist and I was putting in all the purchase orders with the printers for books that like Where the Wild Things Are, If You Give a Mouse a
Yeah.
Cookie, Go Set a Watchman,
Mm.
like all the big titles were ones that were coming across my desk. And it was pretty easy as far as like just sending the files all off that already exist. I got to do that for a year, and then a new role opened in my office. I was working out at the Princeton office. They're too big for New York, basically, so they split into different locations. And it was
Wow.
cheaper to have people in New Jersey than in New York, so I got to work out there.
For sure. Yeah.
But I worked as a production editor. So a production editor is just a project manager for books. And
Okay.
I was the one who was managing all of the editing passes. At that time, we weren't really doing much editing in house. And this is something I don't think a lot of people know. Most big publishers don't have editing done in house. They farm it out to
Oh.
freelancers. Some do have editing teams. And if there's like really sensitive material, they might keep it in house with people that they trust. Because we're
Okay.
all under NDA if we're freelancing, but you
Yeah.
still don't want things
Yeah.
to get up there, right? So, um, anyway, so I was assigning editing passes out to freelance editors and getting them back and then sending them to the acquisitions editors to pass back to the authors. There's like many layers deep of things that the author never sees that we're trying to like manage for them. Yeah, so I did that for another 3.5 years and then moved to Amazon Publishing, where I was again a production editor. They're small. Operate as a traditional publisher and they publish over,
Oh.
I don't know, 300 titles a year or something over various
Oh.
imprints. It's
Wow.
not the Kindle side, so there is a separate side for that. So I was on
Okay.
the traditional publishing side. So it was a production editor slash production manager role. So I was doing, again, all of the passes for everything, but I was also managing
Yeah.
all of the cover design, all of the marketing copy, all of the
Wow.
layout stuff. So it was like production editor plus. Like I got to touch
Yes.
everything and work with so many different teams. It was great. But now I am freelancing. I have a different day job and I freelance copy edit for Big Five publishers, mostly through my network that I made while I was working at HarperCollins and Amazon Publishing. And
There you
so
go.
I'm working on some major titles that I will be talking about later this year, but I can't yet.
Yay! Aw, dang.
I'm under
No,
NDA to even like
I
what
know.
name's gonna show up in the back, so I can talk about them. But excited.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm still thrown by the fact how much you've done. That's crazy impressive.
I mean, 15 years being, like, in publishing is I've touched
Ah,
so much and have, like,
Yeah.
seen how everything works inside. And then anything I haven't touched, Ben was doing as a literary agent. He also worked for Amazon in the books department, helping
oh
with the
wow.
literary agents, who were working with, like, Kindle and stuff, so he's seen all that side, and he's worked
Dang.
with, like,
Wow.
audio stuff. So if I don't know the answer, he does. Like, the conversations that you hear on podcasts, we're just having at home for fun. Like, that's
Oh, I love it. You guys are like a
That's
dynamic duo.
awesome.
You've got the full
Yeah.
scope of things.
yeah, we've done a lot.
You know it inside and out.
Truly, truly, yes.
As a copy editor then,
Mhm.
since you've kinda done a little bit of everything, but specifically with copy editing, what is different about it than other types of editors that are within, like, the writing world?
Yeah, I think a lot of authors don't even understand how many different kinds of editing there are. So if I'm just gonna run through those
Mhm.
really fast, starting with like the most invasive, which is usually developmental editing. And that's what you've written your book and you're like, cool, I think this is great. And then you hand it to someone and they're like, you need to restructure everything. It's not that bad, but sometimes it is. Or they'll, be able to just take a high level look at like where your characters are missing motivation, where your plot holes are like, those things don't connect. And just be able to help you connect the dots to make your story powerful and to play to readers the way you want it to. So
Wow.
once you get through all of that, like the structural, high level things that need to be fixed, then you go to copy editing. And copy editing sometimes gets split up into two different kinds as well. You'll have the line editing
Mm,
side, and then you'll have the copy editing, which is truly supposed to be just like line level commas and punctuation and like word choice and things. But from my experience, ends up being a little bit more than that. Even for
okay,
traditional
okay.
publishers, I am querying throughout. Like, I'm asking authors, like,
Oh.
"Hey, their eye color was different up there," or like, "Why does this
Oh,
person suddenly talk this way when they didn't before?" Or, "You have repeated this word 5
that's
times
so
in 2
funny.
paragraphs, and I don't think you mean to. So, like, let's go through and fix some of that." But most of the time in a copy edit, I am not changing things for an author. I am
Mm,
only asking them if they want to change. And so that's something to know too. If you're hiring a copy editor, make sure that you uh, know what you want out of a copy edit. I think we're going to talk more about that later, but um, because usually a copy editor is not supposed to be changing things for you, and they're not supposed to be
gotcha.
Mm.
doing those structural edits. They might catch them and they might call them out for you, but they're not supposed to be looking for those. And then you
Hmm.
have proofreading. And proofreading is truly just like what is misspelled, where is a comma where it shouldn't be, why is there not
Mm,
we missed a question mark on this question, it's the really like granular things that should have been fixed. Also, um, in a true traditional publishing environment, a proofreader is going to be catching layout errors as well because they will have formatted it
Mm.
oh,
already. So it'll be things like word breaks at the ends of lines or like, oops, we missed a scene break that was supposed to be in there and they're checking against the manuscript. Also, if
okay.
it's
Huh.
like a second pass proofread, they'll be checking corrections from the last pass to make sure
Mm,
they made it in correctly, which it
okay.
can get messy.
Interesting.
Sometimes they do get missed. So it takes a long time to go through those because they're usually making those changes to the laid out copy, not to the
Ah.
word manuscript anymore, right? So
Oh,
they're
interesting.
changing the file only in what is in the like PDF, I guess, but it's not PDF. It's
So
in InDesign and stuff.
they're almost like a editor of the arc. Of,
Yes,
like, the
exactly.
formatted version of the book that's gonna go out, that's what their job to edit is to make sure that they got it correctly and then maybe catch some
Correct.
minor line.
Yeah,
Okay.
in fact, most arcs are made from the copy edited manuscript and have not been proofread at all. So that's why you're going to
Oh.
see
Oh,
errors, and they always have a little disclaimer on the title page of the arc that say, "Things are subject to change, and if you're gonna quote anything, make sure you check the finished copy," because it's not the final text yet.
interesting.
Oh.
Why do they do that? Why do they send out an arc before it's gone through proof? Is it just timing or
It's
is it
Yeah.
timing?
So,
Okay.
majority of the time, we're trying to get ARCs out 6 to 8 months before the publication date, but realistically, like, that's just not enough time for all the proofreading, all the editing that needs to happen. So
Okay.
it comes down to timelines for, like, what we need for printing and other things, and for an ARC, you're usually sending the files off, but then they have to be printed too. It's not like you get it automatically. If it's an ebook,
Yeah.
good, but usually it has to be printed, which can take 4 to 8 weeks. And so that's time that we're using in-house to edit. So the proofreading might actually be done by the time you're reading the ARC, but you're not seeing it in the ARC because that happened after the
Okay.
files went to the printer.
Wow. I did
Man.
not know that.
We're gonna need to have you come back on and just talk about the production side of all of this.
Right.
I'm like, wait, it takes how long?
That's that's what I've managed for so long, so I know the timing of it really well. But also, there's one more kind. It's a secret kind of editing.
Oh.
That publishers call cold reading, which is technically a proofread, except that a cold reader is not supposed to be looking at any previous passes. They're only supposed to be reading the copy as if a reader is reading it, and catching any errors that are there. A proofreader is technically supposed to be checking against the previous to see, like, oh, this was changed. Was that intentional? And like has that to look against. But a cold reader has nothing. They're going in cold. But you don't hear
Oh,
about
wow.
that ever.
No.
Yeah, I didn't even know that existed.
Dang.
Huh, that's kind of wild. So there's like so much that actually goes into the the production of a book. That's way more than I thought. Because I know when co-host Lauren came to me about having you, Lauren, on the episode, I was like, wait, another editor? What? There's more than one? So that's really cool.
The crazy thing is there's more than 2.
Yeah.
Right. Which is so wild.
And I am very careful to say in my posts and stuff that I'm a copy editor, because I think a lot of people see editor, like a big 5 editor means in a lot of people's heads like an acquisitions editor. I'm like, that is not what I'm doing right now. That is not the kind of editor I'm touching. And I don't have that much power. Like, I can't make your book get acquired anywhere. I have in the past, but that's not what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense, though. I mean,
definitely.
So you've pivoted from that, from working for Big 5, from working for Amazon's publishing wing, which is technically not like one of the Big 5. It's a smaller version, to now doing the copy editing. What has kind of like drawn you into this new space for editing?
I love being in the stories. And I think when I was on the production editor side, I was on 60 to 70 books a year. You don't have time to read those. I'm literally just managing like what needs to go where. And like I have had the skills to be able to say like, oh, when I'm looking at the corrections, that's wrong. Or like the author's not going to want to do that. We're skipping that edit. But I didn't have time to read. It was rare. In fact, I remember coming back from maternity leave with my second while I was at HarperCollins. And I was so excited because before they like started piling on the projects again, I was like, I can just sit here and read this whole book because it's what I'm working on, and like I got to read it really slowly, but that was so rare. Like, unless I wanted to take it home and read it after work, like it just wasn't gonna happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now,
Yeah.
copy editing gives me the in-depth look, being with the stories, being able to really get engaged with an author and help them put across what they're intending to do. I think what's tricky about traditional publishing is that you don't usually know who your copy editor is. It's like you'll be lucky if you get any initials.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
Wow.
usually if you want to know who your copy editor is, you can ask after the fact, like add them to the acknowledgments or something. But normally they're not like asking you like, who do you want to work with? Unless you're
Oh,
a big
interesting.
name who already has an established team that you like trust. You don't get a say. And so they'll just send it out to whoever is available, and
Sure.
you get lucky if you end up with someone really good. But sometimes you'll get stuck with somebody and you're like, I didn't like that edit. And you can push back. Like as an author, you could be like, I didn't like that edit. Can I get a second one? They will possibly say no. But like you can ask. But also the editor's not supposed to be changing that much. A copy editor, right, at that stage is not supposed to be changing very much. So hopefully there's not too much in there that you're like, I don't agree with that.
It's more of like, hey, you forgot a comma or a period or quotation marks, or did you
Which
mean to
the
say
proofreader's gonna
smirked
catch
12
after the
times?
copy editor. So you kind of
Yeah.
have like there's a safety net built in as a copy editor where I'm like, I am catching all the big things. I will catch them.
Mhm.
I'm also gonna catch probably 80 to 90% of the little things, but there will be stuff that slips through. Also, when you're getting your copy edits back from an author and you're making change, or sorry, from an editor, and then you're changing things as an author, then new errors are introduced that a
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
will then catch. And I've had some authors decide to add whole chapters after a copy edit, which is
What?
don't do that.
Oh my gosh.
Please save
Do
the
they
sanity of your editors and don't do that.
do they send it back to you after that, or does it just go to the
Usually,
proof?
no. Yeah, that is a great question. Usually, no. It does happen occasionally if it's like something really crazy happens, but majority of the time, the production editor in-house is the one who's in charge of cleaning up and like making sure all of the edits were addressed. And then it just goes straight to layout. They'll format everything and then it goes to proofread. So I don't see it again.
Wild.
That's so interesting because that's so curious. Because I've read books before where I've been reading it and I'm like, why does this chapter kind of feel slightly off?
Mm. I mean, they probably didn't add a whole chapter. That's rare. I've had it happen, but it is.
Yeah.
I think it's more common to like, oh, I need to add a new paragraph, and maybe that will
Huh.
shift tone, but you're not going to have a whole chapter added unless an author's.
That's still kind of wild, though.
That's crazy.
That's
Do you
so
find that,
crazy.
like, since I don't know if you work with indie authors very often, but do you find that, like, within the indie author realm, that the copy editor is a position or a person that either doesn't get brought on or doesn't get brought on at the right time? Or is there an element of understanding within the indie space that authors have of the copy editor, or anything that you feel like is like a misconception just from your experiences, either interacting with people or working with indie authors?
Yeah, I think a lot of indie authors don't even understand what a copy edit is, and so they know a developmental edit has to happen, right? Like they're that's something everybody talks about. Like I need it to go get structure fixed and whatever, and then they think, oh, the next step is just proofread. But
Mm.
there's so much that happens at copy edit as far as making your storytelling consistent, making your line structure, your grammar consistent, and a
Yeah.
proofreader's not supposed to do that. Um, and so if you're
Mm.
paying for a proofread, they're only supposed to be looking at those little tiny typos. They're not supposed to be doing like, oh, you are forgetting to add or you like parenthetical commas instead of em dashes, right? Like looking at your consistency throughout, they're not doing that. They're just doing what's
Okay.
wrong, not suggesting like, here's how to use this correctly or like how to make it consistent or like, I see here that you're
Mm.
using ellipses instead of an em dash for this trailing thought and or like an interrupted thought, but you're using it differently here. Would you like to make that consistent throughout? And so then we can um
Gotcha.
I am asking you, like, how do you want this to be presented so that when a reader is reading it, they're like, not like, "Why is this happening here?" And maybe most readers don't
Yeah.
care. That's totally a possibility. But there are enough readers who will be thrown off or who
Mhm.
will be
Yeah.
like, "I don't get it." And so I can come in
Mhm.
and say, like, "Your readers will be confused. Let's clarify this." Where a proofreader is just like,
Gotcha.
"Comma's wrong."
That's really helpful to know actually, because I feel like that's almost like you're helping a writer hone their craft at that point. Not just from a consistency standpoint, but like that element of being like, do you know that an M dash usually means this, even though everyone's terrified of using them now because of AI?
So would you be the one that would catch, like, if somebody's accidentally, like, mixing their tenses?
Yes. Yeah, I
Mm.
Okay.
proofreaders would also catch that, but one of the things I count or I call out the most is, uh, past perfect. Like, when you're writing in past tense and then you go to a past scene, you should be writing in past perfect, which is like, "I had," right? Or, uh, not just "I
Oh.
went," but, like, "I had gone." Like, those putting it in past
Oh.
perfect tense, and I call that out a lot. There's also, like, a bridge that we use sometimes where we do a soft fade in and a soft fade out. If you don't want it to be in past perfect for that whole scene or that whole memory that you're writing, then you can kinda do, like, a hint to the reader, like, "This is past for just this a couple sentences," so that you know, like, "Oh, that was a trigger, and now my brain is in that past scene." And then when you're coming out of it, you do it again, just, like, 2 sentences are in the past perfect so that your reader remembers, like, "Oh, yeah, that's right, it was a memory." And then when you go into regular past, they're like, "Oh, we're back in the normal story again." So those are the
You
things that
have
I'm catching.
You've totally just blown my mind. I didn't even know past perfect was a thing. So
Darcy's gonna go back and rewrite like 5 chapters now.
Yeah,
oh
I think it's one of
wow.
those things that you do naturally as an English speaker, like if English is your first language. When you're learning, like, say, Spanish or French or another language, past perfect is a normal part of that curriculum that you'll learn. And that's actually, I learned French in middle and high school. I took French for like 8 years. And so, like, past perfect was something that I know better from French than from English.
Oh,
But
interesting.
because I learned that structure from a different language, I can catch it easier in English.
Ah, that makes
That's awesome.
sense.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now I gotta. Yeah, I literally actually have to go back and probably rewrite like 4 chapters.
All right, homework
Oh
for all
wow.
authors is go get French Duolingo on your phone and start learning.
Don't go that far. Where, like, where you have a memory, and if you're staying in past tense the whole time of the memory, is that confusing to a reader who's like, "Wait, when did this happen? Why is
Mm,
their mom showing up here? I thought she's been dead for 3 years." Like, it's a trigger
Yeah,
to a reader like, "Oh, that happened in the past." And so you have to, as an author, as a writer, go, "Oh, that means that I have to make sure the reader knows it was in the past." So you signal that with
I love that
hey,
though. That feels like one of those like professional hacks where you're like,
yeah,
you know someone's a professional when they do X and nobody notices it, but them doing
right.
it is like, I know what I'm doing because I'm doing it and no one
yeah,
notices it because it's just so like smooth and ingrained in like psyche and like society that like if it wasn't there, people would be like, oh, this feels a little off, but no one could tell you why.
Yeah, and a lot of authors will push back if I try to make things in past perfect because they're like, "I don't like how there's so many hads." I'm like, "Well, don't write." I don't know what to tell you. Like, but that's where the fade in, fade out approach works really well, is you can kinda signal with just a little bit instead of doing the whole thing in the past perfect.
that makes
Interesting.
sense. That's so.
Huh.
That's what. Okay, yeah. Mind blown. But that does make sense because I've read things before where I've been like, wait, why are they all of a sudden here? They haven't been there in years. So that makes so much sense. Wow.
And then
Okay,
you can
well,
do
I
it
learned something new
changing a
today.
font or, like doing a scene break or something. Like, you can put it into your writing really easily. You just have to make sure the reader knows what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yes.
that because we did an episode a little bit back about flashbacks and time jumps and stuff, and that's such a good piece of information to have if you're
Yeah,
doing
I
flashbacks.
should make a
That's
post on this, I guess.
you should.
I'll do that.
That's awesome. Um so I guess okay, so my next question is I know you talked about how in traditional publishing, a lot of the times they don't even know who their copy editors are. They don't get to pick. Um, but is there an aspect, I guess, where in indie authors, if they decided to go with a copy editor, is there something that they should be asking their copy editors, like specific things that they should be looking for in a copy editor?
Yeah, I this is something that I get concerned about a lot, as someone who's on social media frequently in this book space. I see a
Mm,
lot of people who say, "I read a lot, that means I can be an editor." And that's a huge red flag to me. Even if you're a writer, like if you're like, I've written 3 books. Um, and even if they're traditionally published, that doesn't mean that you're an editor, right? Like
Mm,
maybe you can be a developmental editor because you understand story structure and you've studied that and you can speak to that. But copy editing and proofreading are skills that need to be trained. And so I think understanding when you're approaching a copy editor or a proofreader what their background is hugely helpful in the outcome of your edit. Because if you know, like, oh, they've been through a training program or they have worked in certain editing expertise, or maybe they went to college for it. Like there are programs for that. At least you know that they've been trained in the right rules, the right manuals to use, and like the right way to approach with theories. Because
mm,
you don't want to, I don't know, don't want someone who's like a bad fit for you. So asking background is huge. You can ask for any references or maybe like a list of books that they've worked on. Some editors have that available on their websites, or it's like an ask, you have to ask to find out sort of thing. Um, and then it's really good to ask for a sample edit. Not everyone offers a
Mm,
sample edit, but I think that it
okay.
helps to get a sample edit. Sometimes it's free and sometimes they charge like, I don't know, $50, depending on who you're working with. I do mine for free, but it's usually like 1,000 words that they'll work on for you so that you can see if their style matches what you're looking for. If they're
Okay.
Okay.
querying the kinds of things that you would want to be queried, if they're just like changing stuff on the line and not asking you about it, is that a concern to you? Or do you want someone that's
Mm.
coming in and doing that line editing for you? So getting that real feel for their professionalism, the way that they will be working with you is definitely something I would want to know upfront as an author.
Okay. That definitely makes sense. I think that's kind of a consistent thing that we've been seeing over is like always get the references and then just always like kind of get the feel of the person and their style.
Mhm.
So that definitely makes sense on the copy editing standpoint.
Well, not
If
only that, but
mm,
I mean, just real quick to throw in, it feels like for copy editing specifically, there definitely needs to be some sort of like education background because you're basically coming in and being like the rules person and saying, this is what this means. You're
Yeah,
using it like it's something totally different. And if you don't understand those rules, then you may be coming to me and like, yeah, I think that looks fine.
right. And you don't have to have a ton of training. Do I recommend a ton? Yeah, but like, at least if you know if they've been trained on where to find the rules, and, like, even having the experience of saying, like, "This is how I did it in a different book, and so I know to look for this." Just, like, having many touch points of experience will help, so
Yeah.
that you're not getting someone who's, like, fresh and doesn't know what they're doing.
yeah. Um yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of misconceptions around a copy editor in a lot of ways. What's the most common one that you always kind of get like when people are querying you to be their editor if they're coming from an indie standpoint or any standpoint really?
The questions that I get, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so what are like common questions that you get that you kind of notice are misconceptions
Mm. Yeah, I think
about your job?
the large one is, like, what are you gonna be editing as a copy edit? I
Okay.
had an indie author approach me last year and say they wanted a proofread, and I did a sample edit for them, and I was like, "This needs a copy edit, not a proofread." So I think that
Oh.
that is a big part, and re when I wrote back to them and said, like, "This actually needs a copy edit. Here's what I would do in a copy edit. If budget is a concern, we can talk about that." And put forth like what I would do, so that they understood it, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, obviously I need a copy edit. Let's do that instead." And so that's what we ended up doing. But I think that most authors don't understand the different types of copy editing, and so if I have to do a little bit of education on that at first, that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
people to understand like me fixing commas is not going to help here. I need a little bit more invasive than that, so that your readers understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
That
so important. I think that's part of too, just this like conversation we're having over this season of just the business side of things is, if it's not that authors are like willfully trying to get away with not hiring a copy editor, or they're just trying to, skate by with the most minimal amount possible. It's like, what even is a copy editor? I didn't know a copy editor existed. Like,
Yeah.
oh, isn't it a proofreader? Can't I just ask my Aunt Becky, who's an English teacher, to like read it? And that's the
You
same thing. And
can,
it's like, no.
you can. I think I think that's, like, if you want to publish for free, like, self-publish for free, you totally can. No one's stopping you from doing that. I think there's this, like, perception, that indie publishing costs a ton of money and you have to pay a lot of people a lot. And you don't. Like, you can do it for free if you want to. If you instead have a goal of, like, being on par with a traditionally published book,
mm,
then yeah, that's gonna come with a different budget. Um, but that also doesn't mean that you have to put the budget all up front. Like, maybe your first book, you're still learning, and so you're spending a lot of money on the cover design, and, like, a little bit of money on the editing. And then on your second book, you're like, "Okay, I learned, first of all, how to sell that book, so I made enough money to put into my next one, and
yeah.
spend a little bit more to get a better edit." and maybe have a new team that's gonna put me in a better position to continue to grow my career. So it's like really
Yeah.
understanding what your goals are as far as publishing when you're approaching editors. Because if it's just like, I just want my book out in the world and maybe 5 people will read it, don't spend a ton of money. You don't need to. But if your goal is to like, maybe I want to be an author for a career, well, then you got to treat it like it's a business and
Yeah.
put
Mhm.
that energy and that money toward it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, so if somebody was like they're putting the money towards it,
Mhm.
and they're coming to you as a copy editor, as independent, is there a conversation of a back and forth? Like you edit it and then you send it back to them, and then are they is it general with a copy editor for there to be more of a conversation that happens in case things don't fit, but they still need it fixed?
That depends on the editor, and the contract that you
Okay.
sign. I will say I finished an indie edit in a couple weeks ago, and that was someone I already had a rapport with, like, I'd been talking to them on social media for over a year, and, like, I felt comfortable saying, like, "It's fine, like, we could have an extra phone call." Like, I'm not gonna charge you for an extra phone call to talk through things because it felt like doing it for a friend, and I'm not saying that's how your relationship with your editor should be necessarily, but, like, um definitely find out in your contract if that's something that you want. If you want
Yeah.
to, like, have a whole letter sent back to you with your copy edit, find out if that's what your copy editor is going to deliver. Your I
Okay.
think this is one of your other questions, so I don't know if you're planning to ask that, but, like, you should always be getting a style sheet back from your copy editor.
Mm.
Uh
Okay.
and a style sheet should have a list of all the character names, all the places that are mentioned, whether that is like fantasy or real world. Like if you're mentioning Boston, it should be in your places list. And then words that are specific to your writing, whether it's like spelling
Mm,
that you like to use that go against Merriam-Webster's suggestions, or
Interesting.
maybe you made up a word to put in. You like all that should be listed so that when you're looking back later at your own writing or, like, changing something, you can be like, "How did I spell that again?" And you can look at your list. It's also for
oh,
proofreaders later on in the process to be like, "What choices did the copy editor make that I need to keep consistent when I'm proofreading?" And they can look at your style sheet and see those intentional decisions, so that they can continue to do that going forward.
oh
Uh,
wow. I
so yes.
I didn't realize that was something that gets made. I'm learning so
Oh,
much
yes.
today. This is
Yes. Always
Same.
come with your copy edit. If your copy editor does not say they're going to do a style sheet, that's a red flag. Don't go with that copy editor.
Mm.
okay. That's good to
Yeah,
That's good
know.
to know. Yeah. I mean
if
that could also be used for your audiobook. When you go to do an audiobook to share that style sheet with your narrator so that they can see that list
mhm,
of places and names and characters and things that you invented that you need to explain how to pronounce.
yeah. I don't do the pronunciation guide. That's on somebody else to decide, but I will write them all down
Yes.
for you. And it also helps
Yeah.
me as I'm editing to be like, "Wait a minute, this character's name just changed, I think."
Oh.
So I can call it out in a query and be like, "Did you mean this other person?" Or like, "Maybe you need to fix what you're naming this person throughout." It happens. I did it recently. I called that out.
Oh no.
And yeah, what else? So style sheet, and I can't remember the whole question I was answering before. Oh, other thing
oh
about the
no.
conversation. Um, so yes, you might just have email correspondence back and forth with your editor, or you can have a phone call if that's what you're interested in. Just ask the editors that you are
Okay.
interested in working with how they prefer to communicate. And be upfront. Like, I would love to discuss afterward. I did just have a follow up phone call with an indie author that I finished an edit with. And I talked to her about some things that I didn't mark because I was like, this is outside of my scope as a copy editor, but if you want these notes, I'm happy to give them to you. I just didn't want
Okay.
to like go above and beyond if she was like, no, no, I'm not interested in that.
Understandable. so the style sheet is one thing that your
Mhm.
editor would provide, of course. But what is something else, I guess, that a copy editor should be giving you back when you receive your copy edited version?
Usually a copy editor is going to be putting all notes in the manuscript. So, you
Okay.
would not be expecting an editorial letter the way that you would with a developmental edit. Um, it is just the manuscript and the style sheet and maybe a timeline. I usually put my synopses of each of the chapters in the style sheet, but sometimes a copy editor will also build a timeline if you have like lots of time jumps or like I worked on a book last year for a traditional publisher where a whole week just disappeared, and I was like, wait, well, no. So I like built a timeline like, you said there were 2 weeks, and I only see 1 week, and so like, what needs to shift here? Do we need to make this 1 week? And so I like laid it all out with highlights and comments. The production editor that got it back was like, I'm so glad we had you on this.
I bet. That's huge.
Yeah.
Messy. But but most of the time it's just the manuscript and the style sheet will come with a copy edit.
That's so interesting. Okay. Sorry,
You're okay.
I'm caught up on the style sheet. I'm caught up on all the other stuff. There's so many things, and my brain is like,
I will say that when I'm working with indie authors, I like to send a little, in my email, like, I loved working on this book. Like, here are some things that I loved, because I feel like sometimes I get so into like the nitty gritty, I forget. I'm not the kind of editor who's like, I loved this sentence. I loved this. Sometimes I will ask specifically my indie authors, like, do you want my positive comments? And I don't make a lot of them, but like, do you want me to put them in? Because when I'm doing it for traditional publishing, I don't, because I feel like it's not professional if I don't know you to be like, oh, this is so beautiful or whatever. Because I don't know the author. I don't know what they're expecting. I like all my queries are really soft and kind, and I want to make sure that they trust me as an editor when they're reading my queries. But I'm not going to go out of my way to be like, I hate this character or like whatever. I do sometimes write that. Most of the time I'm saying it in my head. But for my traditional authors, I don't. For my traditional authors, sometimes I will put, because I know that the editor, the acquiring editor who communicates with the author will not send back anything that's not in the manuscript. So sometimes I'll write a little note at the very first page and just say like, hi, here's some things that I noticed as far as trends for you to pay attention to. Please make sure you check the style sheet for X. And I loved working on your book, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's
I love
unusual.
that. Okay. That's just a you thing.
Is it? Yeah, is it with copy editing, is it just more of like your job is as the professional copy editor is to just lay out the things that need to be fixed and changed. And so adding in the, oh, I love this line, or I love that moment, or haha, that was so funny. It feels less professional because that's not within your job description, versus a developmental editor is like, oh, this is working. This is not working. You're just like, rules. This is how it goes.
Yeah, I think for me, those like little comments read like beta reader feedback of like, this is what you want your friend to tell you, that they're loving or they're hating or whatever. But like, it's not my job to tell you how much I like a character. It's my job to tell you if the thing about this character is not consistent with what happened before. Or that something about them is standing out or is wrong compared to a detail that you had earlier. So yeah, it can feel like you're getting your copy edit back and you're like, I don't know how to write. Really, I don't know how to do anything. But that's not my goal. My goal is to make sure that you look like you know what you're doing. And so that it is easy to read from a reader's perspective, and they will be like, wow, this author's the best author that I've ever read, because you've done all the work with me and your team to get it to that place.
Yes.
Yeah. So the ones that I've read in the past that have like really bad plot holes, that's probably because they skipped out on a copy editor.
And I've read some things. Yes. I mean, like even traditionally published books will come to me sometimes, and I'm like, ooh, like how did this get acquired? And I will definitely call out the issues, the plot holes, but then it is on the author to fix. And if they don't fix it, if they don't take my notes, there's nothing I can do about it.
That's true.
Their acquiring editor at the traditional publisher can push back. They can say like, no, you actually do need to fix this. But a lot of the times they don't. And so it's like an acquiring editor won't even necessarily look through the whole copy edit to know what is queried. It just goes straight to the author. And it's on them to fix, and then it goes back again. And then sometimes a production editor will be like, this didn't get answered, so we do need to ask them again, but not always. Sometimes they'll just be like, meh, well, they clearly don't care, and move on.
Oh, wow. That's kind of wild. All that work, and it still might not happen. That's...
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, it's just a
Lo-
reminder too that like the people that come in to work on a book with you as an author, whether you're indie, trad, self, whatever, like they're part of your team. And even if you don't get to pick them as part of your team right from the jump, like they are still part of your team. And theoretically, they're trying to make your book the best it can possibly be. They're not just doing it for the sake of having something to do on a Friday. Like they actually want it to be good. And obviously there's some discernment with that of like sometimes people just aren't up to snuff or it's the wrong fit. But like, yeah, if you get feedback from someone, whether you are getting it through trad or you're getting it as an indie author, like it's important to like take it into consideration because it's to make your story better. Otherwise, you're gonna have people that are like DNF, like
Yeah, and ultimately, like, if I wanna give you a note and you don't take it, that's fine, but it's how
Mhm.
other people will perceive your writing, and so if you're okay with the way that it's on the page, tell your story the way you want to. That's,
Yeah.
how it should be. If I want a book to be written a different way, I can write my own book, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
I don't need you to do it the way I want it done. What I'm trying to
Yeah.
help you do is tell the story the way that you're intending to tell the story. And sometimes that might
Yeah.
be by fixing a plot hole or changing a
Mhm.
character detail or like I don't know, fixing something in your ending, but like it's totally up to you to decide how you want that story to be presented to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your editors aren't your end all be all.
Mhm.
That's they're there to help, but you don't have to. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know too, because I know me personally, with the way I am and my sensitivities, sometimes I might like if I sent something off to an editor, I'd be like, no, no, they're making me do stuff. So it's good to know that it's not the end all be all.
And hopefully by the time it gets to copy edit, the things that I'm suggesting to change are like, why are they eating dinner now instead of like a page ago when they said they were sitting down to eat dinner? Like a lot of things have
Yeah.
happened. It's little details like that. It's not like you should totally change the motivation of the villain because like, that should be dealt with already, right? That should have been
Yes.
handled in developmental edit. So the things I'm coming in to change are much, much smaller. And
Okay.
again, if you don't want to take the edits, you don't have to. Your readers just might be like, why is this happening? And
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
okay with them asking questions, fine. I've worked with a very significant hybrid author who used to hate every edit that I would send to her, and I was like, "I don't know. I don't know what you want."
Oh
Like,
man.
from, like, someone who we basically told only proofread because his author won't take your changes to, like, something more intensive.
Mm,
She just no matter what we did, she hated everything. So, like, it's fine.
wow.
Interesting.
And she would say, "My
Oh
readers don't
wow.
care," and I'd be like, "Alright, if your readers don't care, I don't care. We're just moving on with our lives."
That's wild.
Oh
Like, why would you
wow.
bother to hire someone if you're not gonna listen or
That was
like
traditional
just at least
publishing, so, like, we were gonna
Oh,
change no matter
interesting.
what. But, and we fixed
Wild.
things,
That's
but yeah,
funny.
just, like, things she would be like, "My readers don't care about that inconsistency," and I was like, "Alright, well,
Are you
I care.
sure?
I'm not probably her reader, but
I know, I
my
was like, "Well, I'm
sense
not one
of
of your
like,
readers, I
right,
guess, so it's not it's fine.
that
It's
would be
not the
so
genre
hard
I
to
Wow.
would
work with.
normally go to, so whatever."
Yeah. Oh man.
Dang.
That's wild. And they don't care. Well,
I care.
I care. I care so much. So within like I guess we're so early in the new year, but with over like the last year, I guess, not just in the new year, have you noticed any new trends or themes in the publishing world that's kind of like popping up?
I just did a whole post on this, so I don't know if you saw
Oh,
Yay!
that.
No, not yet.
It was a couple
not
weeks
yet.
ago. I what did I title it? It's like things that publishing professionals are talking about behind closed doors or something like that.
Oh, I
But
did
it was
see that.
I did see that.
viral. Like I've never had a carousel go viral like that, which was crazy. Got like almost 10,000 followers in 2 weeks because of that
Holy
post.
crap.
Wow.
That was insane. That doesn't happen to us usually. But it was just based on conversations that I'm regularly
Uh-huh.
having in my own home with my husband, but also, you know, former coworkers and other people that we're talking to on a regular basis. And yeah, the industry is going through a lot of change right now, largely economically driven, also some politically driven. And so
Huh.
we're seeing the places that investment are going are shifting a little bit. if you are writing in the middle grade space, I'm sorry. It's kind of like the conclusion of that, because right now a lot of children's literature is being, divested in, and so you're seeing
Oh.
fewer new breakout middle grade authors, and you're seeing more investment towards stuff that already has existing IP. Like, if you go to
Mm.
the children's section right now, you're gonna see a bazillion books from Captain Underpants and Dogman, and then
Yep.
you're gonna see a lot of graphic novels, that's a huge investment space right now, but even that's pulling back a little bit. So
Oh,
a lot of, like,
interesting.
contemporary graphic novels, um, for books like Guts and Sisters, and then, like, we're starting to lose some of the, like, boxcar children type books, like those easy
Oh,
early reader
Mm.
chapter books, because kids aren't reading them. I have 3
yeah,
kids. 2 of them are reading. They're
Yeah.
2nd and 6th grade, and so I see what my kids are choosing from the shelf. Even when we go to the library, I'm like, "Pick anything you want," and they still gravitate toward graphic novels.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I encourage any kind of reading. I don't
Mm.
care what they read, but they like the graphic novels the most. And my
mm-hmm.
oldest likes the stuff that's based on TV shows or video games that he's playing. So stuff
Yeah.
like
Ah.
Gravity Falls, if you know that show, there's a
Oh, yes,
Yep.
I
bunch
love that
of
show.
Love Gravity Falls.
bunch of books that are about Gravity Falls or, like, revolve around the Gravity Falls IP, and for Christmas, he got a bunch of gift cards, and I was, like, so excited to take him to the bookstore, and he picked, like, 3 graphic novels or 3 different books that were about Gravity Falls. I was like, "Really? All of them? Okay."
No Pride and Prejudice in there, no Red Badge of Courage, no
His skill level is really high. He loves reading Ready Player One and, like, really high
Oh, wow.
level adult stuff, and then he'll read, like, Dogman. Like, I don't there's, like, a something in the middle that's missing that he's just, like,
Yeah,
not that interested in, and I know it's not
yeah,
just him, it's, like, all his friends, and his friends would rather
yeah,
play video games than read books. And so we're just
Yeah.
losing some investment in that space for kids that age, and I know a lot of
yeah,
Mm.
librarians and teachers are concerned because as
Mhm.
there's less investment in that space and there's less for them to recommend to reluctant readers,
mhm.
or even like luctant readers, like readers who want to read. Like what's the opposite? um, this is the copy editor who doesn't know words, guys. Sorry. um, anyway,
No, that's hilarious.
the readers the kids who want to read too are also losing books that could potentially
Mhm.
speak to
Yeah.
experience that they aren't seeing on page somewhere. That said,
Wow.
there is tons of literature out there. I'm not really concerned, in truth, about my kid not being able to find books. What I am concerned about is the diverse, like, marginalized authors who are not getting the investment to
Mm.
tell stories that don't exist yet.
Hmm.
And that's also why
Yeah.
we're seeing book banning happening, specifically in schools. And so those
Mm.
books that do exist, that are created, are not getting on the shelf. And so the kids who need those books aren't reading them. So
Yeah.
that's another issue in this space, but it's also why publishers are pulling back because they don't even want to publish books that are not going to be able to be bought. One of
Yeah.
my closest friends just released a book last week called When Tomorrow Burns. She's a Newbery Award winning author in 2020 for the book When You Trap a Tiger. And this new book is another
Hmm.
contemporary middle grade. And it hit the New York Times bestseller list last week, which is incredible. But
Wow.
Wow.
he, before the book was even published, was seeing that it was being banned from schools in Texas
Hmm.
because one of the
Wow.
characters has 2 dads. There was nothing
Hmm.
else, like, no other LGBT issues the kids were not dealing with themselves, except that kid who had 2 dads was being bullied, and people were saying
Mm.
that he was gay, like, other teenage boys were saying he was gay, and he's like, "I'm not gay." But it was getting banned before it was even published because people knew that it had gay parents in it. So that's
Wow. I
definitely
didn't realize we were that far into book banning.
oh,
So,
yes. In 2025 was the highest year of, like, highest number of book bans that we've ever had. Um, I
wow.
the stats right in front of me right now. I think I put them in that post. So, I'll look at it again. But yeah, there are multiple organizations that are tracking book bans, and they're
Mm.
only escalating right now, which is really bad for
Wow.
authors that are writing that material. So if you want to support authors in that space, specifically buy banned books that have been published within the last 3 to 5 years, because those are usually the authors that are still writing, and
Okay.
need the most support. You can buy Handmaid's Tale, but, like, Margaret Atwood doesn't need more money. And I'm not saying that she's a great author. I don't mean it that way. I just
Yeah.
she's that. You
Don't
don't
send her fans after us. Don't say that.
she's that. You don't have to only buy the banned books that have been banned for 50 years. Buy
Yeah.
the ones that are currently banned, that are being published now by authors who are continuing to build their careers, because they are the ones who will not be able to continue writing, will not be able to support themselves writing if their books are banned.
Yeah, what you're saying
Um,
about the 8th grade book stuff too, though, is definitely something I've heard echoed by other people. Where there's some trad authors, one who's very well known for a middle grade series that took off about a decade ago, and he was talking about how middle grade specifically is in a very weird, like, these weren't his words, but like a weird Twilight Zone kind of a thing, where it's like you either had kids who were like below that reading level and reluctant,
mm,
like you said, or they were way far above it, and like so they didn't want any, like the people didn't want the middle grade books that were geared towards that, because they either were like, I don't want to read that anyways, or like I want to read something much higher up.
so Lauren, not co-host Lauren. If people want to see your posts that go more into that information, as well as just everything that you post, because you have great content, by the way, where can they find you?
Yeah, we're primarily on Instagram at Books on the Grange. We have a website, booksonthegrange.com, but the majority of our content is on Instagram. We're also technically on TikTok, but pretty much everything that's there is also on Instagram. um,
Same.
and my husband does. Oh, we are co-founders of the 30/30 Writing Challenge. So if you are interested in getting a new writing challenge to push you to move forward in your writing, is totally free. It's a replacement for NaNoWriMo, because that organization imploded in
Yes.
2025.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we built this to be a replacement for that, that has similar infrastructure as far as writing trackers. So you can see like your progress over days.
Yeah.
And we have 4 writing challenges a year instead of just in November, so that you can track your writing. The goal is 30,000 words in 30 days. So that's
Nice.
at 3030k.com, THIRTY30K, letter K.com. And
Nice.
yeah, that's totally free. So that's where to find us.
I'm gonna check that out
I
because
love
that's
it.
cool.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Anything to keep us
awesome.
on track.
Yeah, we were talking about it last November that we needed a replacement for that. So
Yeah.
Lots of different
you guys heard it
organizations
here.
popped up to support all the writers who were looking for a space. I'm someone who also used to write during NaNoWriMo. I wrote 5 full manuscripts during 5 different Novembers. And so I was missing that space too. But 30/30 was just like a slightly more achievable goal, to do 30,000 instead of 50,000, so you don't feel completely burned out at the end of the month. But
Yeah.
the reason we're doing it 4 times a year is so that you can really see yourself all the way through to the end of a novel. So it's not just
Yeah.
I love that.
50,000 and, like, that's not a whole book. Like, what do you do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
This feels like
Yeah.
motivation when the challenge is over. Like, this is something that will keep you going, through an
Yeah.
entire year.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Um, so other Lauren, co-host Lauren, where can people find you and the podcast?
Yes, yeah. Thank you again so much, Lauren, for coming on. Yeah, if you guys want to follow the other stuff that we're doing, mistymorningstories.com is the website, and you can find at Misty Morning Stories on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, YouTube, and Substack. All 5. And how about you,
Yeah.
Darcy? Where can they find you?
Um, Instagram, I am at Darcy_Michaela. I'm also on Threads with that same name, but you can also find Untitled Work in Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Mostly Misty Morning Stories is going to be your like consistent posting on Instagram for the
Unless you're on TikTok,
podcast.
Darcy.
Unless you're on TikTok. Yes, that is true. I do post consistently on there, but if you're on
Yes.
Instagram, Misty Morning Stories. But yeah. Oh, and DarcyMichaela.com. That's my website. I always forget that exists.
Yay!
Well, Lauren, thank you so much
Yes.
for coming on. I learned so much. I mean, there was
Yeah.
some times where I was literally like just processing. I lost my words because I learned so much. So thank you for coming on. We appreciate that so much. Um,
Thanks for having
and
me.
yeah, of course. Please, you guys check her out. She's got a ton of really good information on her socials. So, and yeah, I guess I'll just leave you guys with what I always leave you with. Remember, everybody is a work in progress. It's a process. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.